and I now yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Luetkemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Barofsky, for your testimony today. It's very compelling. I appreciate your thoroughness. Just kind of curious, I know that in the stimulus package, I think it was Senator Dodd, at the request of someone in the administration, put in there the continued authorization to pay these bonuses. Is that not correct?
I think the provision you're referring to is the one that made it so that any agreement that had been signed prior to February 11 of 2009 would not be subject to the ARA restrictions that were later incorporated into ESA.
Okay.
So that is correct, that part.
Why do you have any information as to why that would have been in there? Did they need that in order to be able to pay these bonuses legally, or was there concern on their part that they're not legal otherwise, so they put this in there? Or
I'm not familiar with the legislative intent of why that provision was put in there.
Okay, did it have any impact on your audit?
It had an impact to the extent that it made it very clear that these would have been exempt and carved out of any of the ESA restrictions.
Okay, so in other words, it emphasized the fact that they wanted to make these bonuses available or be able to be paid to their executives. Is that correct?
There would be no TARP restriction on,
okay.
on making these payments.
What's the percentage right now that the government actually owns of AIG? As you said, 80%? Okay. Since we the people own that, do we have a representative on this board of directors?
We have trustees. I think they advise the board of directors. I don't know if they're actually on the board of directors.
So we don't have representation on a board that we own 8% of?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think we do not have, the government does not have representatives on the board of directors. I'm not 100% sure, but I can find out.
Why do we not have representatives on the board of directors?
I think the decision was made to manage the government's interest through these trustees instead. Okay. But again, I'm not sure we don't have representatives on the board of directors, but I'll find out.
Okay, and right now we have a gentleman, Mr. Feingold, who is, or Feinberg, who is the pay czar, who is going to oversee the payment of future bonuses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
What authority does he have to do that? Where does he get his authority from?
His authority is basically arises out of ARA, which we were discussing earlier, and the Treasury regulations that were issued resulting out of ARA, which set forth the executive compensation restrictions, set forth this procedure for Mr. Feinberg. So it ultimately draws from the statute.
So they supersede any contractual obligations that AIG might have with its employees?
Well, that is going to be one of the challenges that Mr. Feinberg has, because no, it would not. For example, it wouldn't trump these the future retention payments that are due in March of 2010. ARA still exempts those from ESA's restrictions. AIG has asked for, and he can provide a advisory opinion on them, but ultimately those remain to be binding contracts. But of course, he can make recommendations. He can take into account past compensation, making future compensation decisions.
So we really haven't solved the problem yet. If we have a pay czar who doesn't have the authority to oversee the bonuses, and we don't have a representative on the board of directors who can direct that these recommendations be taken seriously. Is that a fair assessment?
It may very well be. I think that my understanding is from statements AIG has made to us, and as they state publicly, that they're working very closely with Mr. Feinberg. And we're all hopeful that the AIG will follow those recommendations. If not, I'm sure they'll be here.
I take that as an affirmation of my statement.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Very quickly, as my time expires here, you've made a couple of recommendations in your report, and we're just kind of curious as to whether Treasury has implemented those. One is that Treasury continues to hide information about the value of assets in its portfolio. Have they started coming clean? Have they started to make more available, more transparent what their assets are and the value of those assets?
No, they're going to be publishing as part of GAO's annual financial statement for the TARP. They'll be publishing under the Credit Reform Act valuations of the portfolio. That's an annual process. They have not adopted our recommendation of sharing with the American people their internal valuations they receive on a monthly basis. I've scheduled a meeting with them actually tomorrow. They're going to give us a briefing on their justifications and explanations as we continue to press for that recommendation to be adopted.
Now, you've made several recommendations in your report. What do you feel, in your estimation, is the most important recommendation that you could make, and have have whoever you need to be able to address it, have they addressed it, and are they, if they have, fine, if they haven't, why not?
I think it's difficult to say because each TARP program is different, but I think our biggest overarching recommendations, which relate to transparency, in particular on requiring TARP recipients to report on how they're using the TARP funds, is fundamentally important for a number of reasons, including it fuels a lot of the cynicism. The failure to adopt this recommendation, I think, fuels a lot of the cynicism that the American people have towards this program, this perception that the TARP is a black hole. I think it's a very unfortunate decision on Treasury's part. It's a decision that was made by the last administration and continues with this administration, and it's one that we continue to press for. But I think that's one of the most significant failings because it's indicative of a basic attitude towards transparency that we find is lacking in the TARP program.
I appreciate your remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's time is